Her phone rang, making her jump. Maya had been dreaming about something that felt like a past life that had been a living nightmare. Maya glanced down at the screen and saw Jack's face looking back at her. She had taken the picture a week ago when they had gotten her a phone for her birthday. They wanted to be able to get in touch with her, and they thought it was weird that she didn't have a phone. Everyone had a phone, after all, and the fact that she didn't made her stand out. It was nice of them. She was grateful. But Maya was still getting used to having something like this in her pocket at all times.
Hello,
she said sleepily.
Don't tell me you're still napping,
Jack said, and she could hear the smile in his voice.
We're supposed to be going to the cabin today, remember?
She grimaced. The cabin that they had found online. The one that Lena had been talking about for 2 weeks. The remote cabin where no one would be able to help them if something happened. To her friends, the cabin represented recreation. They could swim in the nearby lake. They could hike in the woods. They could explore the caverns that weren't far off that Lena said she had read about online. It was play for them. To Maya, it represented isolation. The kind of isolation that she had seen get people killed way too many times.
Yeah, I remember. Jack, I'm not sure I want to.
Come on, Maya. It'll be fun. You remember what fun is, right? It's just for the weekend. We'll be back Sunday night.
It's just so far out in the woods, Jack. I don't know.
Don't make us come kidnap you,
he said good-naturedly.
We've got everything we need. You just have to bring clothes, your bathing suit, and essentials. I'll be there to grab your stuff in 30 minutes. You'll have a great time, I promise.
Maya bit her lip. It did sound like fun, like nice, normal people fun, and she did want to spend time with her friends.
Okay,
she said finally.
I'll be ready.
Awesome,
Jack said, sounding relieved.
See you soon.
And then hung up. Maya was already ready. She had her clothes, her sunscreen, her bathing suits, her hiking boots, her toiletry kit, and at the very bottom was the black zipper bag that she never left anywhere without. That was her just-in-case bag, and it was more important than anything else. She had put it all in a knapsack, and when Jack arrived, she had thrown it over her shoulder.
Awesome,
Jack said again, handing her the keys.
Think you can drive?
Anything with 4 wheels,
Maya said, following him to the student parking lot.
Cool. I was too excited to nap. I don't want to run us off a cliff or anything,
he joked. Connor and Lena were waiting by the SUV, and Lena practically squealed when she saw Maya.
It'll be so nice not to be the only girl on this trip for a change,
she confided.
Well, let's get going,
Connor said as he slid into the back seat.
At this rate, we won't get there till sunset.
Maya felt a twinge of apprehension as she started the car, but she shrugged it off. It was a fun weekend with her friends. What could go wrong? The man in the dark hoodie didn't look up as they pulled in for gas. If the directions were correct, and they always were, they were about 30 miles from the cabin. This would be their last stop for gas and snacks, and then they would be in the snare.
They've arrived at the last station,
he said into the payphone.
We'll take up their trail and follow them to the site.
Excellent. Proceed with caution. You know what's at stake, Darek.
Yes, sir. Don't worry. We'll get her.
He hung up the phone and watched as Maya and the other girl came back from the bathroom. Darek wasn't worried. He'd done this 100 times before, and this would be no different. By the end of the night, she'd be back where she belonged. No one seemed to have realized that the GPS has changed. It changed 10 miles ago, but none of them even noticed. They were too busy napping or yapping from the back seat. None of them noticed, except for Maya. The small dirt road seemed to be swallowed by the dark pine forest, and Maya clutched the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the black leather. Jake slept soundly beside her, his head against the passenger window. Lena and Connor were bickering in strained, low-pitched whispers in the back seat.
I'm telling you,
Lena growled.
we should have taken the main highway.
Connor rolled his eyes.
This is a quick fix. 20 minutes from now, we'll arrive at the cabin.
The low grumbling continued, but Maya remained silent. As she scanned the darkness behind them, her gaze kept going to the rearview mirror. Something didn't feel right, but that was nothing new. Maya was constantly watching and scanning. What she was looking for? She couldn't say, but old habits were hard to break. The car's headlights cut through the darkness like a surgical blade, revealing nothing but endless trees and the occasional glint of something metallic in the undergrowth. Branches scraped against the car's side, creating an eerie melody. Jack stirred, saying something about coffee as he came to. His voice was heavy with sleep, his eyes owlish as he glanced around.
Where are we?
He inquired.
Almost there.
Maya said flatly. She kept her eyes on the dark forest, drinking it in as she drove. She was adept at seeing the dangers and the advantages that others might miss. A gift from, well, not better times, but different times. She kept her eyes peeled as they drove down the narrow road, prepared to stop suddenly or hit the gas if something unexpected should lurch out. She sighed in relief when the cabin came into view, though this feeling was short-lived. The cabin hunkered like a beast in the shadows. Dark windows, weathered wood, and trees that appeared to be leaning in and observing. The gravel crunched under the tires as Maya parked the SUV, and the quiet arguing went silent behind her.
Jesus,
Whispered Connor.
this place looks like something out of a horror movie.
If only he knew. The night was unusually calm as they emptied the SUV. No ree-rees of crickets, no hootings of owls, none of the night sounds that you get accustomed to. The only sound was the wind whispering through pine needles in the distance. No one joked as they approached the door. They had been spooked to silence by the sight of this huge, crouching beast. And as the door creaked open, they found something out of a slasher flick. The cabin was just what you would expect. The furniture was old and appeared to have been there since the 1970s. One wall was dominated by a huge, chilly, and gloomy stone fireplace, the wood inside barely more than blacked cinders. Animal heads gazed down from the walls, their eyes glassy and staring. It smelled of dust and age, and if you looked up rustic in the dictionary, you would have found a picture of this place.
I'm going to start a fire.
Jack said, dropping his backpack. Lena started unpacking groceries in the small kitchen while Connor wandered toward the back and looked at the bedrooms. Maya stood by the window, just watching the night. Watching. Always watching. The others moved about her, unpacking and setting up as they explored the cabin, but Maya was stuck to the window. She had felt something on the way here, something familiar, and she was just waiting for the noise that she hoped she wouldn't hear. She was still watching the tree line when there was a barely noticeable noise, the kind of noise that most people would ignore. Maya, however, wasn't most people. It was a floorboard outside. To the left of the cabin, someone was walking, carefully and deliberately. She squinted into the darkness, but she couldn't see anything. Maybe it had just been an animal, she thought, listening to the low conversations of her friends around her. They were discussing breaking out the laptop for a horror movie, maybe making some popcorn, but Maya was worried that they might be about to become the horror movie.
Guys,
she said, interrupting their friendly banter.
What?
Lena asked, her knife frozen as she prepared to slice some cheese.
Someone's outside. Maybe several someones.
She had reached back and grabbed her flashlight from her rucksack, shining it through the dusty glass as she looked for the source of her anxiety. There. She had caught something at the edge of the property, but it had moved too quickly for her to track properly. There were 3, she believed, but she couldn't be too sure. They were quick, whoever they were, and they were cohesive. Connor snorted.
This far out? I doubt it. It's probably an animal or something.
Or some hick who's wandered up onto the property on his way somewhere else.
Lena added. Maya didn't say anything. She knew what she had seen, and it was no animal or drunk townie. These people knew what they were doing, the way she knew what she was doing, and if she hadn't seen them, then it was pretty likely that none of them would have woken up tomorrow. A shadow passed from tree to tree. Something thumped lightly against the side of the cabin. Leaves stirred. The wind made the trees groan, and beneath it, Maya heard the approach of doom. These were minor sounds, gone in an instant, but they were sufficient.
Kill the lights.
She hissed, her tone abruptly harsh.
What now?
Jack asked, much too loud.
I only just got the fire going.
Maya didn't wait for him to finish. She moved away from the window and flipped off the lights, plunging the house into darkness.
Hey!
Connor began to object, but Maya shushed him. They all stood in tableau, shadows on the wall of an old cabin as silence reigned within. That's how all of them came to hear the gentle sound of a foot coming down on the creaky boards of the front porch. It was gentle, nearly undetectable, but it was there, and they could hear it now. Right behind it was the soft crunch of gravel, and that seemed to add credence to her earlier statement. This was more than someone just peeking in through the window and then running off. There were a couple of them, at least a couple, and they were moving toward the house instead of away. Maya's teeth chattered. They were surrounded. Lena looked at Maya.
What's happening?
She asked, her voice pitched low and full of fear.
We're being hunted.
Maya breathed, and her tone left no room for arguments.
What do we...
Jack asked, but his words were drowned out just moments later. The sound of breaking glass made all of them jump and was undercut by the sound of Lena screaming. Both of the windows in the living room burst inward, but Maya could hear softer crashes from inside the house. She would likely find windows broken in the bedrooms, the kitchen, and any other windows that they could find. It would make the hunted question exactly where the hunters were coming from. Maya was on the move already.
Move the furniture. Construct a barricade across the door and the windows.
Nobody asked her any questions for once, and that was good, because Maya knew there would be no time for answers. There was a calmness and total assurance in her tone that made it impossible to argue with her, and it had galvanized them. The heavy, hardwood coffee table was overturned in a matter of seconds. The antique armchair served as a fodder for the barricade. Connor picked up a fire poker from beside the fireplace, Lena holding her cheese knife like she hardly knew what to do with it. Jack had found a baseball bat in one of the corners, and Maya pulled a hunting knife out of her knapsack as she made ready. Lena looked at the knife in her hand.
Were you expecting trouble?
Maya didn't answer. Another crash from the back of the house made Lena jump and sent her knife clattering to the ground. It was probably someone raking the shards of glass from one of the windows. They were making noise, trying to distract them, and no one outside was attempting to be subtle anymore.
Not again,
Maya thought to herself. How had they found her? They all stood their ground, each of them at the ready as Lena stood back up with her recovered knife. They could come from anywhere, and they could already be in the house. Maya pushed an easy chair in front of the hallway, blocking off the bedrooms as she scanned the darkness for any sign of ambush. Maya's breath was slow, deliberate, contrasting badly with the loud and uneven panic breaths of her friends. Lena was trying to look everywhere at once. Connor's hands were white and bloodless as he gripped the fire poker, and only Jack looked like he might have a handle on at least some of his fear.
Why aren't they doing anything?
He asked after about 30 seconds had passed. The wind blew through the broken windows, making this a hollow noise, like a melancholy ghost.
They're waiting for us,
Maya said confidently. She could feel Lena looking at her, and the girl's interest was making her uncomfortable.
I'm gonna check the kitchen,
Jack said.
Connor, have a look out the front window and see if you see anything.
As the boys moved off, Maya was unsurprised to see Lena move closer.
You seem way too sure of what's going on. Do you know what's going on? Did you have something to do with this?
Maya sniffed.
If I did, I probably wouldn't admit it, but no, I don't know who these people are. But the situation is one I have some experience with.
Lena opened her mouth, but let out a squeak as more glass broke in the kitchen. Maya sighed. Whoever this was, they were taking their time. They knew that no one was coming to help, and it was unlikely that anyone even had cell service way out here. They were amping up the anxiety, probably hoping that someone would make a break for it, and Lena seemed on the verge of bolting already.
They can't get you without getting all of us.
She assured the girl.
At least if we stay together.
That seemed to quiet her for a little, but she squeaked again as Jack came vaulting over the love seat that they had pushed in front of the kitchen door.
Someone threw a rock through the window and hit some shards. They're just toying with us,
he said as Connor came close to the others.
I didn't see anything. It's pitch black out there.
Connor confided.
We need to stay together.
Maya whispered.
If it's just a single person, then maybe we can rush them.
It wasn't. She knew it wasn't, but it might give them some hope.
It's as good a plan as any,
Jack said.
If we go out there, they can...
But Maya put up a hand to stop him. She had heard something. A soft noise that barely registered over the sound of Jack's voice. It was the scuff of metal on metal. A quiet sound like someone sanding their nails, or a raven on a windowsill. She looked at the front door, but it was too close to have been that soft. The back door. Someone was picking the lock in the kitchen. Connor had heard it too. His head was lifted like a dog who's caught a scent, and as he took a step toward the barricade, Maya put a hand on his shoulder.
Don't.
She half pleaded.
Stay here where it's safe.
Connor rolled his eyes and pulled away.
I just want to peek.
He went toward the kitchen door as quietly as he could, and Maya worried her lip with her teeth. It would have been Maya on the other side of that door years ago. Not the hunted, but a member of the squad doing the hunting. Locks had been something that she was good at. She had been good at a lot of things that didn't transfer well to polite society. Connor stepped up beside the door, listening. The lock clocked as it opened. Silence for half a heartbeat. Then, the door swung open. No grand entrance, no squeaky footsteps. There was only a faint shuffle to announce them. Now, the cabin was occupied by someone, or several someones, and their security had been breached. Maya's thoughts were racing. Usually, they would start with reconnaissance. They would search the area, prioritize possible dangers, points of weakness, and find avenues of escape. They would want to flee if the prey turned out to be strong, but if this group was anything like the ones that she had run with, they would find them to be easy pickings.
When I say go,
she whispered, quiet as she could,
we move. Agreed?
Maya's hand touched Lena's. She hoped the girl would take it as a sign of unity. Jack and Lena nodded, and when she looked at Connor, he nodded as well. They were all in agreement. They might still be able to escape. In the kitchen, she could hear light, purposeful steps. They were getting close. Maya knew the methods. Every step was positioned precisely. These intruders were not amateurs. They had done this many times. Maya steered her group toward the hallway, putting her finger to her lips to ensure that they moved quietly. They went as softly as they could, probably sounding like a herd of cows to whoever was in the kitchen. They would expect some movement, some anxiety, but hopefully they would think this is just the prey getting antsy. Near the hallway entrance, though, a floorboard made a creaking sound. Maya stiffened. Control the surroundings was the first rule of home invasion. Isolate your targets is the second rule. Create confusion was the third. From the bedroom came the sound of something heavy dropping, loud and purposeful. A diversion. Maya snarled, "Now!" The group began to shift, not in panic, not at random, but with some amount of coordination. Jack took the lead, Connor coming up behind him. Lena moved with a poise that belied her apparent lack of expertise, with Maya behind her, picking up the rear. Maya had the best chance out of any of them in this fight, so long as it was one-on-one. The corridor was dark and gloomy. Anything could be lurking there in the space between rooms. She had not yet heard the kitchen door open, and they needed to be somewhere else when it did. This was not the place to pile up, and when something shifted in the dark in front of Jack, she almost hesitated. They were in dark clothes, face covered, nothing but a shadow until it was time to show themselves. The shadow got closer than it should have, and Maya realized that she might be a bit rusty. Her hand found the tactical flashlight faster than she had anticipated, and the beam cut through the dark before she had properly slit her eyes. If it disoriented her, though, it went off like a full-blown flashbang in the eyes of the stalker. The dark-clad hunter stumbled back, lifting its arms to cover its eyes as it tried to orient itself, but it was too late. Jack's baseball bat made contact with its skull, and it fell into a heap in the hallway.
Got him!
Jack grunted, much too loud, and Maya heard the door to the kitchen squeak open. She counted doors and found one that didn't seem like the rest, and was glad to find the dank depths of a basement. It was odd placement for a basement, but Maya wasn't about to question good fortune. She pointed the light into the depths and nodded at it as she herded them into the darkness. She pulled the door shut behind her, looking for a lock, but finding none. They would have to be quick before whoever was in the kitchen discovered their handiwork. The stairs were narrow, and the group went down one at a time as they descended into the earth. Maya kept her light on and up high, glad that she had remembered to charge it before they left campus. It would make them stand out, but it would also help Jack see upcoming threats since he was less used to fighting in the dark. The stairs creaked something fierce, and Maya doubted that it would take their pursuer long to figure out where they had gone. Maya had little doubt that they would consider this to be a good thing when they discovered the prey had gone into the basement. I mean, how many times had she followed a frightened quarry into a blind alley after all? With any luck, there would be a way to get out that didn't involve a lot of noise, but they would cross that bridge when and if they came to it. For now, they had to keep moving, and they had to keep quiet. The rooms in the cabin above were nothing like the basement. This was unfinished, dirt floors, and sweating concrete walls, with pipes looming overhead that looked like metal veins in a vivisected corpse. The walls were hung with tools and other rickrack, the metal shelves looking like they were ready to buckle as the floor sagged and shifted beneath them. Maya took stock of the area. There wasn't a lot, most of it was junk, but even junk could be useful when the chips were down.
What are we doing?
Lena muttered, terror finding a home in her speech.
Finding an exit.
Maya whispered.
Always have to have an exit.
Connor gripped his fire poker as he looked around, and Maya could swear that she heard his bones creak.
We should stand them off.
He said, too loudly.
We can use those stairs and—
Quiet.
Maya interrupted.
Most of them could probably fight you as easily on the stairs as they could anywhere else. No, we need to escape while we still can.
Maya went looking for an exit and was relieved when the rest followed suit. Above them, she could hear footsteps getting closer to the door, but the others didn't seem to understand the urgency for stealth. Jack's baseball bat clunked hollowly against a concrete column, and Lena bumped into a bottle of detergent that fell to the floor with a loud, watery sound. Maya sighed, quickening her pace as she looked for some kind of exit. Time and stealth were not on their side, and these idiots were going to bring the whole hunting party down on their heads any minute. As she searched, she remembered the last time that she had been in a situation like this, though the roles had been reversed then. It had been 5 years ago, in another house, on another evening. She had been sneaking through a quiet house, the lights off and the power cut, with a knife, just like this one, in her hand now. He had told them not to make a sound, and Maya hadn't needed to be prompted. Silence was her cloak, her shoes, and she took to it like mother's milk. She had found a couple of people in the basement, doing just what they were doing now, and the girl had screamed after she cut the man's throat and let him bleed out. Back then, she had been full of pride. But now, remembering those days, she was filled with guilt and disgust. Connor turned, starting to say something, but Maya put a finger against his lips as she listened. Above them, the footsteps had stopped at the door to the basement. As she listened, Maya could hear others as well. 2, 3, 4, or maybe even 5? She couldn't be sure. They came on as silently as a cat, and then she heard the soft scrape of tools on the door above. They were looking for a latch, a lock, something that would thwart them. It was unthinkable that the door could simply be unlocked and left unbolted.
We need to get out of here.
She hissed.
How?
Connor shouted, making her wince and put another finger to his lips.
There's no way out of here.
Maya looked behind him, feeling something on her face as they stood talking. It was subtle, the barest puff of air, and when she pushed on the bookcase behind him, it slid a little bit to reveal an opening in the concrete. It certainly wasn't subtle, but the owner probably hoped that no one would look too closely at it. But it was there, nonetheless. A secret tunnel in a house full of murderers. How Agatha Christie.
Come on,
She whispered, pulling Jack into the tunnel as Connor came behind. She turned for Lena, but the girl was looking at her with open distrust.
How did you—
not now.
Maya hissed, hearing the door open with a loud creak.
Come on.
She grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her forward, sliding the shelf back as quietly as she could. Maya could hear them coming down the stairs now, their feet making sounds too subtle to be heard by anyone not trained to hear them. They would find the secret opening. She had no illusions that they wouldn't, but this was just more time on the clock, and that's what she needed right now. She was preparing to go after them when she heard a voice, smooth as silk, waft down the stairs.
Hello, Maya.
Maya tensed, freezing as the figure came down the stairs and stood on the dirt floor. Him. They had sent him. Suddenly, there was no hope of a fight. There was no winning. There was only escape. They had to get out of here. They had to get away from him. His mask had been removed, and he had laid himself bare at the most opportune time. Darek. Maya turned, hoping that they had run down the tunnel, but they hadn't. They had just waited for her, just like friends were supposed to do, and they had heard the man name her. They didn't know him. I mean, how could they? They didn't know that a devil was walking amongst them. They didn't know the danger that they were in. She shooed them on with her hands, telling them to run, but they stood fast, wanting to hear more.
It's been a while,
He crooned, walking purposefully loud across the dirt floor.
Why don't you come out so we can chat?
Maya turned, taking her hands off the shelf, standing in the way of the opening and hoping that they would run. He knew she was here. He had clearly seen her, but as she turned to face him, Darek was an easy 10 feet away. His face lit up in mock surprise.
Well, there she is. We've been looking for you.
Maya!
Lena said, and though she tried to say it softly, Darek turned his head minutely to the side.
How does he know you?
Maya opened her mouth a few times, trying to find the words. The phrase, "we were co-workers," came to mind, but honestly, that was laughable. Co-workers weren't the people you snuck into people's houses with and slit their throats in the middle of the night. We were friends was a close second, but that was just as ridiculous. You couldn't be friends with these people. They weren't really people after all. They were numbers, shadows, things, and they didn't have friends. Only victims.
I left.
Maya said, sounding bored but not feeling it. Darek laughed, and it sounded blasphemous in all of this silence.
Left? People don't leave, Maya. You know that. People die, or they get killed. But they don't leave.
Maya?
Lena said again, and it sounded like the boys might be struggling to get her to go with them. How could you explain something like this to normal people like them? Normal folks didn't understand the rules that they had been operating under. How do you explain to people who have loving parents and warm homes and normal lives that sometimes people have terrible parents who do things that make the worst abuse imaginable look tame? Sometimes people have parents who sell them to bad people. People who turn them into weapons and use them for things that you read about on the news. Parents like mine, who sold me to the same people that had told Darek to find me after they had turned me into a weapon.
It's been 5 years, Darek.
Maya stated, hoping against hope for something like sanity to rear its head. The problem was that Darek and sanity weren't really on speaking terms. Derek's eyes did not meet his smile.
Because now is when they decided to get you. It's been 5 years. 5 years of time for you to get soft and weak. Now that you've wasted all that talent, we can come scoop you up and let the organization decide what to do with you.
2 people in masks stepped out of the shadows, their feet as quiet as Maya's. Maya could hear others as they searched the house, making their way here. Her past, it seemed, had caught up with her. It looked like she was out of places to run.
Well,
Maya said,
you can tell the organization that I haven't been idle for half a decade. I expected that I'd have to face the music one of these days. I just didn't think it would be right now.
The basement hung on a knife's edge. Darek and the others stood still, cloaked people who looked more like shadows than actual people. Maya was all that stood between Jack, Connor, and Lena, and certain death. If any of them were going to get them, they would have to go through her. But if she and her friends were going to escape, they would have to go through Darek and his shadows.
Is this really where you want to die?
Maya asked, her bravado at odds with her anxiety. Darek shrugged.
Shadows don't die. They just stretch.
Maya!
Lena cried in frustration.
What is going on?
Don't worry, dear.
Darek said to her.
You've just been caught up in our little game. We came to retrieve a lost shadow, but we'll gladly kill some interlopers while we're at it.
What's he talking about, Maya?
Connor asked, and to her horror, Jack took a step toward the opening to the tunnel.
Stay out of this.
She hissed, not taking her eyes off Darek.
If you won't run, then don't get in my way.
Some of these methods Maya herself had learned. The two shadows came oiling out of the gloom at her, quickly and deadly as any organization-trained cutter could be. Unfortunately for them, Maya reflected as she started to move, and she was no ordinary cutter.